In this video, we're going to show you how to build a walnut console cabinet using flexible tambour panels from Osborne as well as walnut plywood. Stay tuned for some tips and tricks and we'll be right back. For this project, we're using 3/4 inch walnut veneered plywood that we picked up from the local hardware store. We'll start by ripping this 2 foot by 8 foot sheet in half to give us a roughly 12 inch wide top and bottom. Next, we can measure and cut our top and bottom to the final length of 50 inches for this project. We're going to be rounding the ends of our top and bottom to give it a classic mid-century look. So to do this, we'll use an adjustable compass to mark a half circle on each end of the plywood. I'll start by finding the center of the board and then placing the anchor point of the compass in that location. Next, I can stretch the compass out to the far edge of the board and lock the width on the tool. Next, turn the compass 90 degrees and slide the tool back until the pencil lines up with the edge of the board, making sure to keep your anchor point centered. This will ensure each edge is the same distance from the anchor point and allow you to create a perfect half circle. Once your compass is set, trace out the line for your cut, making sure that each edge is aligned properly. We can repeat this process for each end of the boards, then move on to cutting it out using a jigsaw or a bandsaw depending on your capabilities. Once the ends of the board have been cut, you can use a finish sander to touch up the final shape and remove any excess material. Next, we can measure and cut our tambour to its final length of 27 inches using a miter saw or circular saw. If you're interested in learning more about Osborne's flexible tambour panels, you can check out the link below to learn more about the full collection on our website. These panels do have a fabric backing to allow them to flex, so I find it easiest to fold them in half before cutting them to size. This will help eliminate some fraying on the fabrics and create a nicer finished look. As you might have guessed, we're going to be wrapping the tambour around the radius that we created earlier, so I'll start by finding the center point of my board once again. Now we're going to be using 2 panels on each end to create the look that we're going for, so I'm going to make the seam fall right in the middle of my board. Next, we're going to create a smaller mounting plate that will sit inside the tambour panels themselves. I want my tambour panels to sit 1 inch from the edge of the plywood, so I'll add 1 inch plus the thickness of our tambour, which is 1/2 inch, and subtract this from the distance our calipers were set at previously. This will create a half circle that is 1.5 inches smaller from each edge of the plywood for my mounting plate. I'm going to make 4 of these plates for each end of the top and the bottom. Once the marks have been traced out, you can use a jigsaw or a bandsaw depending on your preference. To help support and align the tambour panels, I'm also going to add some 1x2 lumber on each of the mounting plates. This will essentially create a shell that the tambour can wrap around and help with support and alignment. To do this, I'm going to notch out 5 locations on each of the mounting plates that will accept the 1x2 lumber. You can attach these directly to the top of the mounting plates, but notching these out will give us some extra area for wood glue and add to the rigidity of the piece. Once we have 1 mounting plate created, we can trace out the locations on the remaining 3 and move to the next step. To attach these mounting plates, I'll first center them with the proper overhang from each edge, and then use some wood glue and a brad nailer to secure them. Next, we can cut our 1x2 lumber to length at 27 inches, which is the same length as our tambour panels. This will ensure our top sits flush against both the tambour and the support boards. To attach these, we can once again use some wood glue and a brad nailer to fasten them directly to the mounting plates. I'll start by installing them onto the bottom of our cabinet before moving on to installing the top. Next, we can install our top board onto the supports, making sure to line them up with the notches that we created earlier. Depending on how tight the cutouts are, you may need to use a mallet to help with assembly. Once we've checked that each end is the same height from our work surface, we can attach using wood glue and a brad nail directly into the mounting plate. This completes the overall shell of our cabinet, and we can now move on to installing our furniture feet. For this project, we're using the Wheeler Classic Bunfoot from Osborne Part 4175 on our website. To install these, we're going to create some DIY mounting blocks from our 4x1 true stock lumber. If you're interested in either of these parts, you can check out the links below to learn more. I cut these blocks to 4 inches and we'll be adding a threaded insert directly in the middle. I opted for the hanger bolt install service from Osborne for my Wheeler bun feet, so all I need to do is pre-drill a 1/2 inch hole in the middle of my mounting block and install the threaded insert. If you're interested in learning more about this process, you can check out the video above or in the description. I chose to install these mounting blocks on the very edge of the bottom to allow for maximum width between the furniture feet. You can simply pre-drill 4 holes in each corner of the mounting blocks and attach using a proper sized wood screw. Once the mounting blocks are attached on all 4 corners, screw in the furniture feet using the pre-installed hanger bolts into the threaded inserts. Next, we can install the tambour panels on each end of our cabinet. To do this, I'll brush on some wood glue to each support board that will adhere to the back of the tambour panel. Then I can align the end of the tambour panel to the center of the cabinet and attach to the supports using a brad nailer. When installing tambour panels side by side, it's important to leave a small gap about the size of a playing card between each panel. This will allow for seasonal wood movement within your project. We can repeat this process for the other end of the cabinet before moving forward to the next step. Next, we're going to create 2 side panels for the interior of the cabinet to hide the tambour structure. These panels will be cut to the same height and width as our support boards, so keep that in mind when cutting and measuring. To install these panels, we can add some wood glue to the top and bottom, making sure to avoid any excessive glue squeeze out. Then slide the panel in place and attach using a brad nail through the tambour slats into the side panel. Next, we're going to add a shelf in the very center of our cabinet, so I'll cut out some supports using the leftover 4x1 true stock lumber. I'll attach these supports horizontal in the middle of my cabinet using some wood glue and a brad nail to help clamp until it's dry. Next, I'll measure the length and width that my shelf needs to be and cut it out from the remaining walnut plywood. final step for this project is to add Osborne's walnut edge banding to each plywood edge. Osborne offers pre-glued edge banding in a wide range of sizes and wood species, so be sure to check out the links below if you're needing edge banding for your next project. Installing pre-glued edge banding is easy and only requires a few tools. If you want to know how to install pre-glued edge banding, check out the video above for a full tutorial. Once our edge banding is installed, we can sand the top to 220 grit and apply the finish of your choice. Thank you for joining me for this video. If you're interested in learning more about the parts used in this build, be sure to check out the links in the description below. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment, and we'll see you next time in the Builder Studio.